Welcome everybody to Monday Morning Call with Paul. Got my special guest here, Chris Russo out of New York. Super excited to have you on here, brother. Just to give a little bit of everybody. You've been in the business, I think, was it 16 months, 18 months?
Yeah, it's probably about that, around 15, 16, something like that.
Got it. And you came from the tech world, right?
I did. I came from banking for over 13 years. Worked at a hedge fund doing technology. So this was like a real big departure for me. I was kind of
Yeah.
looking for something a little different. Always felt I was a good person with, kind of talking to people, but I never had tried sales. So this was something that kind of challenged me. And before I had left, I had already gotten licensed and really just didn't know how to start.
What was the trigger for you? What was like, okay, yeah, I want to do life insurance sales.
I didn't start out like that. It was just insurance. I had a friend that had a State Farm agency. Had like two locations in Las Vegas,
Uh,
and he was like, "Oh, it's a great business, this and that." And I didn't really know much about it,
mhm.
and I actually met him at a wake of a friend, and he
Oh,
was he was
wow.
kind of telling me about it, and so I sent him an email like after the wake, like 1,000 questions, and he went through every single one of them,
Wow.
answered them. His track is a little different than mine, but it was the thing that kind of got me thinking about it. And, there was so many, you take a test for insurance, there's so many different aspects you could do. I
Yeah,
said,
for
you know
sure.
what? I said, let me just take the test. I took the property casualty. I also took the life insurance one. I didn't know where I was going to start, where I was going to fall. And I got on some Facebook groups. And that's really how I started getting involved and finding this group and other agencies that I worked with prior. And the first, actually, before I even got to this group, I was contracted with like a Medicare company, and
Really?
they got me all the way through contracting. They're like, "Yeah, this is gonna be great," and the guy disappeared on me.
Really?
So I did all the AHIP for like multiple carriers, and
Did he
then
just quit or what?
he was just it was like one of those things where I think they're just trying to sign people up and kind of see what's gonna hit, but there was no support whatsoever. And
Wow.
yeah, so then that's how I kind of fell over here through a Facebook group through
Uh,
to life insurance.
okay, cool. And then so you kind of dived into life insurance. You had sort of a group you were with before, and then you kind of jumped in with our group. Sound about right?
Yeah, that's definitely right. Yeah, I worked with another group for over a year. Very good synergy there. But my roots for technology kind of led me back to this group. And this was just more of a fit for me, just to
Yeah.
kind of be able to kind of nurture clients or prospects, I should say, with the CRM. The technology here has just really been, first rate.
Yeah. Makes sense. So I know you really you were looking kind of at our team and what things could sort of, help everybody to become better business owners, right? Because each agent is really their own entity, right? If you will. And so you kind of created this checklist, and I kind of wanted to go through these things with you, one by one. And anybody who's out there, if you guys have questions, just throw it in the chat as we go through it, and I'll read them out to him, and we'll make sure we answer them for you guys. But let's just go ahead and start with the checklist. Is it a daily checklist? What kind of things that it is for you?
It's really, as far as a checklist, it is daily, but there's days where you kind of deviate from it. But a lot of it's best practices, and sometimes you have to kind of like back to the basics. You,
Hmm.
you just got to realize everything on these lists are common sense. It's
Right.
things that everyone knows they should be doing or they learned at some point they should be doing.
Hmm.
But everyday life sometimes it gets in the way. So like when you're digging down and you're looking for prospects, like if you go back to this list, you can remember, oh wait, I should have been doing this every day. Um,
Right. If I correct me if I'm wrong, you have a daily checklist. You got operational tasks. There's different things as part of your checklist. Let's, if we can, start out with your daily sort of client related tasks.
yeah, sure. So for me, I have 3 kids as well. So between this, bookings, kids' sports drop-offs, like I have to be pretty regimented about like
Right.
what I do for my day.
Disciplined for sure.
So like for instance, at like at 3 o'clock, I got to pick something up, but I got to pick up some kids at that time. But at the same time, I may have booked a meeting at that time or that because I know a lot of people may not show up. So
Uh,
I'm going through in the beginning of the day and seeing kind of like where my schedule is and just
okay.
understanding, what I need to do. So, okay, do I need to move this or has this person even responded? So if a person hasn't really responded or hasn't confirmed, I might send them a message in the morning in that appointment to gauge if they're going to really show up. And so,
So, so let's make this a little bit more defined. At what time in the morning do you start working?
so I drop my kids off at like 8:15. I'm back here
Mhm.
by like 8:30. And by 8:45, I'm starting to go through this list and looking through my appointments to
Okay.
see what's for
And
the
so
day.
the first part of your list is sort of review and review the daily schedule, right? So you identify client responses, questions, or cancellations, and then what's the next step?
So after that, I'm really trying to see like there's scheduling conflicts. Like today I had like three conflicts. Like they were all booked at like 11. Like I said, okay, well, I'm gonna call all three of them. I don't want
So
to
you
say,
triple
hey,
booked.
they were triple booked. And so
Okay.
I call the first one, no answer. Call the second one, no answer. Third one, and I just keep doing that through a round robin until I get to three. Then I'm sending them a text message, seeing if they respond. And so I'm doing that for every appointment essentially. I'm not going to
Okay.
cancel the appointment because there's always usually one in there that's a good one.
And there's always possibility of one no showing or maybe two.
Right.
I've had triple book and all three no showed on me before. So
Right. I'd rather have them cancel than me cancel.
right. Okay. And then what's the next step after you check for scheduling conflicts?
So after that, I want to see, what didn't happen the day before. So what fell on the floor, what appointments no showed. And then I'm going
Okay.
through back then. There's a lot of people that don't show up because they don't see this as a priority. Something came up, they forgot about it. I mean, but they're still interested. They did book. They were on a phone call or text, and there was a reason they booked. So I go back to them. I start sending them text. I will call them in between appointments. Obviously in the morning, I'm not going to call them. A lot of time zones are different. So I'm not going to really call them, but I'm going to send them a text at that point, and see if I can get a response. Those are the most recent appointments. So they're definitely, pretty ripe.
Okay. And then I think your next is prioritizing lead engagement. What do you mean by that?
Well, I really want to make sure when I start calling people, I'm going to call the newest leads first. Okay. So I have leads come in. You want to make sure that the ones you're calling are the ones that just came in versus the older ones, in that order, because those are the ones most likely to book. So
Are you calling those new over even ones that have booked previously but no show?
yeah, no, I would call those ones first for sure.
Okay. And then what's next on your list?
Really, after that, it's just going through those appointments you have booked for the day, and then the ones that don't show up, you're basically in between. You're going to be dialing, texting, calling, just looking for other opportunities that you have that didn't convert, and then you go to your next appointment. Hopefully, you get while you're calling, you get some people. The other thing that I've heavily done recently is the inbound calls. As we're calling people, a lot of people don't show up or they don't pick up, and so during that time, they see someone called and they call back. So I've set up the CRM now to be able to, I dial totally out of the CRM. I don't use my cell phone, anything. So any call that goes out, if it is called back, it's going to come directly to me. I have it set up so it pops up on the CRM. I wear a headset all the time, so I can easily just click answer the call. I can see who it is. And I've gotten a lot of appointments and sales just from that alone. People get intrigued that someone called them, they don't know who it is, and they call back.
It's crazy that you say that. I have the same setup with my CRM. If the lead calls, right, then I answer it right away because I don't shoot. I've probably booked 50% more just answering the phone call incoming than ignoring it and then calling back again later, right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, I think it gives people sort of like an idea that, oh, this isn't a scam, right? The guy picked up, right? Because I
Yeah,
think somebody's
Would
not
it be
being a
better
dick.
then for me to give you a call back like Friday? Because if you're gonna talk to her tomorrow, I can call you back on Friday.
Thanks, HD or whoever.
yes. So yeah, I find it when they call in, you know, sometimes they're not interested. Like, oh no, no, no. I think everyone's initial reaction to anyone calling them is, oh, I didn't sign up for this, or I don't want that.
Mm,
I mean, that's just like a knee-jerk reaction, but then you just kind of slow down the call for a second and you get them, oh yeah, I did do that.
how
Just
do you slow down the call? What do you mean by that? Kind of articulate it.
so right away people want to say, oh, I don't want this, or I didn't sign up for this. And so a lot of times when I call people, first of all, I never say like who I am first. I always say, is this Paul? Is this you,
Mm,
Paul? And they're like, yes. And then I'm like, oh, great. We've been trying to get a hold of you. And so they're kind of like stopping for a second. They're not just pushing you away right away. Now you got them to kind of engage a bit.
yeah.
And then from there, oh yeah, I didn't sign up for this. They say, well, are you Paul? Is this your email? Is this your phone number? I'm a little worried because maybe someone's using your identity. That's usually what
Mm,
I tell people.
mm,
Um, some people would be like, piss off. And then other people would be like, oh, well, maybe I did sign up for that, because they realize you have all that information.
right. Okay, cool. Well, back to your checklist. What's next, man?
So I guess, throughout the day, like there's going to be different issues as far as like tasks. Like you may sell someone. I had the other day with Mutual of Omaha, where they wanted a copy of a social security card. When another one was like an ID. So there's things like that you kind of pay attention to. Otherwise, that sale that you think you got, will just kind of fall off.
Yeah,
And
so you're
so,
talking about like making sure you've done all your homework, like in case something the carrier asks for extra through mail, but email. But one thing I've noticed too is let's say you wrote something that was fully underwritten, you should be checking that, you know, daily to see one, if you got an email from them, and if you haven't heard anything in a 72 hour, definitely make a call to get an idea where you're at with that process and following up with your client, because I think a lot of people don't follow up with their client till they hear or see something and not initiate it, and you could lose clients that way too. Um,
yeah, preemptive communication is always better than like, hey, what's going on with this?
yeah,
Um, you know,
100%.
but as far as like the carrier stuff, it's not always just fully underwritten stuff. Like I think the one with the ID last week, I had the name spelled incorrectly. So the
Uh,
the, the lead came in incorrect, and I never really corrected the guy. I never asked
mm,
him. So now
mm,
they were like, the name doesn't match. I had to get the ID, send it to him. But there's a lot of carrier emails like that, as far as lapse notifications or pending lapse. Mutual of Omaha, you have to kind of watch those. They'll send out notifications for, potential lapse, a missed payment. There's all different ones, and sometimes they're all for the same people, so they can get numerous. And so you kind of have to make sure that you're watching those.
It's funny that you say that too, because I know a lot of people that don't follow up on their lapsed book of business, which makes entirely no sense to me because you've been paid out on it, chances 9 out of 10 times, right? So here's a chance for you to save that instead of getting a chargeback. And more often than not, it's somebody that they didn't even know that their payment stopped, right? They, bank account switched or they were in the Nate, they had a low bank account at that time, right? But just following up with them and letting the client know, man, you probably save, anywhere from I'd say 40 to 50% of those if you just followed up with them.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I think the thing is being timely because like I've had ones where, the notifications came in and I didn't get to it that day. Then I didn't see it until like the next one, which was maybe like 2, 3 weeks later.
and it's
Now there's
easy to
an
forget. Yeah.
Yeah, and now there's another payment coming in. So now it makes it that much harder for someone to catch up
Yeah.
because now they owe like two payments. And so if you have like a $200 premium, now
Mhm.
it's 400. The likelihood of them being able to pay that 400 in a lot of cases is pretty slim. So
Yeah.
The longer you wait, the more likely it's going to lapse.
Or if you don't do anything about it at all, then there's a chargeback, 100% chargeback most
Yeah.
often. So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me, but I'm glad you brought that up. Um, what's some
I
other
think
operational tasks?
I think there's one other thing, just going back to that real quick, is like as
Uh,
far as like mutual of Omaha and like knowing the statement, understanding the statement, everyone should kind of take some time to figure that out because I mean it's crazy. It's like a whole nother language you got to figure out. I think some of them, if you get a charge back, if it's in like parentheses, then it's just like you have to hunt for everything in there. Like it's
yeah.
not even clear sometimes if
Let
you have a chargeback.
let's ask the group here. Throw a one in the chat if you feel like you don't know enough about the statements or no one's ever gone over it with you. Either way. And then once we get those answers, let's see how many people understand their statements of when they get paid. All right. Well, throw a two in the chat if you guys would like to see some training, maybe in back to basics of how to read your statements and go over them. Perfect. All right. So there's a lot more people than I thought. That's something that we could definitely improve on. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a learning experience for me too.
Yeah,
I think like Laura's helped me with it a couple times. Um, it's just like I said, it's just getting to know them better, and some
100%.
carriers totally different. The other thing that I like to do, during my downtime or in between meetings or is I like to record all my calls. And
Mhm.
so I will listen to them for two reasons. And I should probably listen to them more for like to see where I can improve, but I have a terrible memory. So every time I get like a new meeting with someone and they want to rebook, I
Mhm.
put a note in there. But you can only put so much detail in there. You're trying to get to the next call. So a lot of times what I do is I go back and I listen to the recording, make all my calls from the CRM, and it just refreshes you. So like when you're calling that person back, they may have that interest and they just needed to figure something out. You can go right back to it, pick up that rapport where you left off. If they told you, that their daughter, just graduated or whatever it is, you're going to have that detail rather than talking to them cold, and
Yeah,
they're going to
absolutely.
notice that. They're going to notice that now this guy doesn't really care.
Mhm. And what's your other reason? You said two.
Oh, the other reason is to improve, but like I said, I don't
Oh,
always
okay.
do that. Um, I work with a dialer a lot of times too, so I'll listen to a call that was booked by him to
Mhm.
see what the person's mindset was as well. So if the call was booked, they didn't show up. Sometimes you can kind of see it was a booked appointment, but the person that showed up, or didn't show up, they probably didn't have intentions. It was kind of like, yeah, okay, I'll set it.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. Anybody who's not calling through the CRM using the recording method, I think you're putting yourself at a real disadvantage, especially if you're brand new. I always train my agents that you should record every sit and you should go back and listen to it and ask yourself one question: Would I buy from myself? And if the answer is no, it's probably because you identified a few things in your script or your tonality or something along that line that you could change to improve so you would have got that sale as opposed to you didn't get it this time, right? The other reason why it's great to listen to it is for season agents is a lot of us, will go on a dry spell, right? I think the worst I've ever went was 16, 0 and 16. I got 0 out of 16 sits, right? And then all I did was listen to myself on a sit that I had been successful on, and then the very next week I wrote 20,000. So sometimes you forget and you slack off and you shorten your script or you shorten your presentation or you say something just a little bit different than you did before, and it just kills it for you. So
Yeah.
I suggest that you always record your sits. You're always able to analyze it and go back, whether you're brand new or seasoned, right? I think it makes a lot of sense. And then for the reason that you said, Chris, makes sense to before you call a sit you already sat, you listen to it a little bit so you can, get familiarized with that conversation you had with them prior, and then it makes it much easier for that rapport to snap right back when you get on the call with them. Great, man. Thanks for that.
Yep. I think the
So
other
that's
thing, going back,
operational.
yeah, going
Go
back
ahead.
to another operational one. This is kind of in the same line of like reviewing client prospect emails, but
Mhm.
really the cases that you have open, really make sure that you're following them till closure until you see that money in your bank account.
Ha, for sure. Don't think it's just a done deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's important too. And when you have the first couple sales, you're obviously looking for that, but then when you start getting caught up in day-to-day business, it's easy for something not to happen. For instance, someone is approved, the date is pushed out, 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and they have insufficient funds.
Yeah.
So it
All
just
right.
falls through the cracks sometimes.
Let's go to the next part of your task, which is best practices for new agents. I think this is great. This what you put in here is phenomenal.
All right. So what I've noticed is there's a lot of agents that come in, and I don't want to say they don't take being an agent seriously, but they see, like a big check come in, they get excited, they sell another one. And, when you are younger, you have less responsibility, you have less, bills essentially in some cases. So you can easily go out and enjoy yourself with that commission and forget that you still have to buy leads, you still have to do all these different things to kind of continue to make your business run and be funded. And so what I recommend for most people is really to set up like some type of business entity. The easiest one is probably like an LLC, and really have a separation between church and state. Don't commingle your personal stuff with this business because it's really just going to get confusing, especially when it comes to pay taxes at the end of the year. There's
Mhm.
there's a lot of advantages to setting up a corporation or LLC, and that is to have tax write-offs. But if you kind of use this when you're at the bar and you're just constantly swiping your debit card, it's going to be very difficult to identify how your business is doing as far as your P&L. And so
It it's funny how you say this, right? Because people don't always realize this is an advance. It's not even like a true free and clear check. It's an advance. And so if you don't set yourself up in this as a business and you're paying your bills out of that same account, this advance is coming in, then you're not truly operating like a business. You're not preparing yourself for the ebbs and flows that having your own business has. So yeah, I think this is awesome that you're bringing it up. So kind of go step by step on what you're saying when you're talking about building an LLC, right? So you need your obtain your articles of incorporation.
correct. You need that. I think you need that for the bank account.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
then, you're going to form your LLC. That's really how you're going to pay taxes.
Hmm.
LLC also provides some protections as far as legality and, if someone was going to come after you.
Hmm.
And then, you're going to open that business account. All right. Now there's a lot of options for business accounts. Some people do online. That's perfectly fine. As long as it's separate, that's the most important thing. And then right off the bat, you're probably not going to do this, but it's best to kind of pay yourself a salary or just you can, it doesn't have to be like through a payroll company, but you could just say, this is what I'm going to dedicate to myself every week. And then you pay your bills out of that, in your personal account. You don't want to be using that account for, your business expenses. And then
Perfect.
the other piece I recommended is using some sort of accounting software, QuickBooks. You
Yeah,
know,
use
it
QuickBooks.
it's another expense, but I don't.
It's so worth it.
Yeah, like I rarely write checks or anything like that. Everything
Yeah.
I do is either through a direct deposit, a debit card, so it's very easy to track everything. You don't, the days of like receipts and this and that. If you get audited, you're going to want to have those receipts, but everything is going to be entered in there for you essentially. You're going to sync that up
Yeah,
to your account.
it makes it so simple. And what I loved about it is it's eye-opening. right, on where your expenses are going. It really keeps good track of your business and whether you're running a healthy business or not too. It's really got a lot of indicators to tell you, okay, yeah, maybe this set of leads is not the way to go. Maybe you need to switch it up to a different type, or you're spending too much money over here and it just doesn't make sense, right? It does put it all in one and together, easy graphs and things for you to see. A great way to track your business. 100%. If you don't have QuickBooks and you're in your own business, then or something like QuickBooks, you're headed for failure for sure.
Yeah, I think most people start out with like a spreadsheet, and I did that as well.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty good in Excel and Google Sheets, but at the end of the day, it's just not manageable.
yeah,
There's two different pieces of it. Something could come in, you might not see it.
yeah,
Um, so definitely try to do that. And then, once you set up your different accounts, then like Paul said, you can kind of see, where you're overspending and, if a lead source is not great, you're not
mhm,
being profitable based on that. So
yeah,
the last thing I would say, you know, as far as the best practice for new agents is, really figure out what you're going to need to pay for taxes at the end of the year. That's something that really kind of gets a lot of people. You can pay quarterly. If you're not making that much money off the start, you probably don't have to do that, but you should at least put the money aside.
yeah. It absolutely got me in my first year. And then when I created my business account, that was the lifesaver for me. I made sub accounts. So a portion of every advance goes into a sub account for taxes, and then I don't ever touch it, don't ever use it, and then boom, it's there for me to pay.
Right. And
Yeah,
hopefully you have enough expenses throughout the years so you don't have to get that either to use that.
yeah,
So that's
yep,
that's another benefit of it.
yep,
But that's definitely what I recommend for new agents. It's too often that I see people that, they come and go, but they just haven't really been set up for success in that sense. They get the money, they spend it, and then, they're in debt. They don't have enough money for new leads or however they're
yeah.
getting their stuff.
Perfect. And then now I think you have last on your list here is general best practices. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
And before we jump in that, one thing I thought of that we should have did in the beginning is can you put that in the chat for everybody to look so that they can have this list in case they want to use it?
Yeah, let me see if I can do that quickly.
I think that would be pretty cool for everybody to have. Any questions so far, you guys? Throw it in the chat if you have anything.
Let's see.
And then I'll start off on your general best practices.
All right, I just put that in the chat.
Perfect, man. So first on your general best practices is client interaction. What do you mean by
Yeah.
that?
So, when you start getting rolling, like, you have to have rapport, you have to have all that. But at the end of the day, like, you got to take notes for a couple of reasons. One is you might not get that sale and you might have to call them back. Number two, if you're going to do annual reviews or, you want to sell them another product after 9 months, you're going to need to kind of remember, hey, remember me? This is Chris. I'm the guy that told, yeah, you told me about your daughter, she was just graduating. Like, to have that information is invaluable. Otherwise, it's almost like if they don't remember your name, it's like starting all over.
Yeah.
So I would say client interaction, just take notes on everything. Like, it does take some time, but if you're serious about being, building a business and kind of having clients, you have to look at it as less transactional and
You know,
more of building relationship.
it's crazy because I have a notebook that I write everything on, but then Sean and Samir, they got on me about it. They have that what is it called? Incredible what is it
I know what
called?
you're talking about, but
Oh
I don't know the
hell.
name of it, but
The
Called The Remarkable too.
there you go, the remarkable two. Basically it's an
It's
like
amazing.
a tablet that you just write on and then it gets transposed on your computer and then types it all out for you everything that you wrote, which makes it 100% easier. So I already have my order out for it now. But yeah, I think it's absolutely important that you take notes. I always put, not just for referrals, even for referrals, like you're getting the beneficiaries, perfect for referrals. And it's one thing in this business that I don't understand why people don't capitalize on more. But if you have beneficiaries, those are potential clients right there. I'm always asking them, okay, great. So does does Steve and Sarah, do they have a policy as well? No, they don't. Okay, great. I'll make sure that I contact him and let them know about the benefits that you received so that they have that and they're prepared for something does happen to you. But I'll also mention to them that there's stuff out there for them as well. Is that okay with you? Right? And they'll say yes or no. If they say yes, all right, great. Let's give them a three-way text letting them know I will be giving them a call later. Right?
So I never solicit them like that, but I
Yeah.
agree with it. It's a great thing to do. But what
Every
what I
time.
do do, what I do do is I always get that person's phone number, the beneficiary,
Mhm, mhm.
because when a policy lapses, I've had multiple that have just gone ghost, or the number has been changed or
Oh, and you
disconnected,
reached out to the beneficiary.
and I'll be
I
like,
never thought of that.
Joe has gotten this life insurance policy. He's put you as the beneficiary, but I haven't been able to get a hold of him, and it's going to potentially lapse. And so it's
Mhm.
another way to contact them where, you know, they disappear. I actually had one today where I was talking to this guy. He was hitting the hurricane in North Carolina. I could
Mhm.
only text the guy for a period of time. And then
Mhm.
finally we were able to get this deal done, but I was talking to the beneficiary's daughter and I can't get a hold of him. His number's disconnected now. So I've been calling her. Today, I've been calling him every day because it's a big policy. So I want to make sure
Yeah.
that they charged back, but they didn't make the first payment. So I want to make sure I can get them to pay it. It was really important. We had a battle with Mutual of Omaha to get them approved. And now I'm calling her to come to find out her fiance answers the phone, and he's saying that she's in the ICU, had COVID. And so I haven't been able to get a hold of her because of that. But now I have that avenue. The other guy's phone is disconnected. So if you're
Yeah.
not going to
No, that's
solicit
smart,
them,
man.
at least have that.
Yeah. All right. So, back to your general best practices. You got handling follow-ups, utilizing CRM tools. Kind of walk us through that part.
Yeah. So as far as the follow-ups, there's sometimes people that are a little, standoffish. Oh, and I'll call you. You
Hmm.
don't need to follow up. Well, it's always my first choice to try to get them to book an appointment just for my sanity, so I won't forget it.
Hmm.
I'll see it. But when I do rebook through the CRM and it's a follow-up, I'll go in the calendar and where the name goes, I'll put in a parentheses reset. Okay.
Hmm.
And then I will put in the details of the notes, all the information that we talked about. So if I put pricing or this or that, if I started an application,
Hmm.
otherwise, again, going back to like I'm not starting cold. And so like,
Yeah.
especially if someone that had real good intent and just needed to think about it, or sometimes they needed banking information, the day goes so quick. Sometimes I have multiple appointments, one after another. For
Hmm.
me to go back and take the time and figure out where I left off with that, it's
Hmm.
very difficult. So that's one thing I always do. The second thing, if they do not want to set up an appointment, then I'll do one of two things. I'll create a task in the CRM for myself for a date, or I'll put a delayed send. How many people in here know how to do like a scheduled send in the CRM? Does anyone know about that?
Throw a one in the chat. If you know, throw a two if you don't know. Yeah, Maya is quick on the draw. Wow, Miss Jackson. That was fast.
It seems like a lot of people know about it.
Yeah. There's a lot that don't too.
So
We'll make
yeah, I mean,
sure
it's
we'll
just
make sure to
another
put
way.
that. Yeah. Why don't you talk about it right now? We got a little bit of time. Tell us how to do it.
Yeah, so you're just gonna go in where you're gonna hit the send button. There's a little clock. You just hit that clock. You could type the message, and it's gonna send it, when they want it, when you want it to. So if someone says, "Follow me on Tuesday," just set it for Tuesday. Hey, we talked last week. Just following up like you asked, and I'll send it out to them. Because I would have already forgotten about it. And so now if they respond back, it's another touch point. It's just a message that's gonna go out. If you want to be super diligent, you create a task for yourself to follow up to. How many people in here use the task in the CRM? Maybe put a 1 in the chat if you use it too, if you don't.
Man, you're getting the hang of this, Chris.
Okay. Now, of the people that know, how many actually look at the test?
And actually follow up.
Yeah. Because I have a lot of tasks that I need to go through.
My wife makes sure I follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but there's some great tools in the CRM, and you can
Yeah.
use them, to your advantage. But even if you do that, you still have to you have to go through them.
100%. All
All
right.
right.
What's left on your general best practices? What's left?
So this is a trick Samir taught me, which was kind of the ones that don't really respond. Use some information in the lead that they gave you, but purposely send something that's incorrect. People ignore things, but then for whatever reason, if they see like a name's wrong or a birth date's
Emails
wrong,
incorrect. Yeah.
email's incorrect, for whatever reason, they
They
respond.
respond.
I don't know why, but they do. And they're like, no, it's this. Oh, okay, well, great. Let's schedule an appointment. So that's another little best practice I would do. I already mentioned the beneficiary one. That was, recording the beneficiaries numbers you can follow up. And then don't hesitate to kind of call, clients you had good rapport with. Ask them for the referrals. Just see how they're doing. Because the people that really liked you, you're going to be able to kind of just have a good rapport with them. They say, oh, I've been thinking about you. I got this other thing, or, there's a lot of different reasons why they would want to call you, but just never do. And you just give them that opportunity to talk to you.
Got it. And then I'm trying to see your list here. Re-engage in non-responsive clients, contact info, client relation.
Yeah, that was the one I was just talking about, the follow-up clients.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, a lot of this stuff's common sense, but we all seem to forget these things. And, it's always good if you have a list you can just kind of go off of.
It's funny that if you're not really organized or you're not doing your daily task, how far you end up creating more work for yourself on a specific day. And usually that day it always happens that you have a bunch of appointments, and then those appointments become a priority. And then you fall further back behind. But it's so important on making sure that not only that you maintain the book of business that you have, but you're getting paid by the ones that you sold. Because if not, what are you in the business for? So it's great that you put this all together. I really appreciate you putting the time and effort into that. Everybody, let's throw a 1 in the chat for Chris. Well, thanks everybody for joining Monday Morning Call with Paul, and see you again next week.